We've been working with a lot of twin moms lately, and it kind of got me thinking, what are the differences between pumping for twins versus pumping for one? Does going back to work look a lot different for mothers of twins? Let's talk about it. This video is going to be all about twins. One of the very first members actually in our Pumping for Working Moms program, 2.5 years ago now, I think, was a twin mom. And she actually shared her story with us. I'll link it down below for you. But Alicia made it to 14 months exclusively pumping for twins, even after returning to work at 3 months. It was amazing. It was not easy for her, right? But she actually joined us the last few weeks of pregnancy, which was really cool because we got to be with her for the entire process. It was absolutely amazing. We've had over a dozen twin moms come through our program now, and they're some of my favorite to work with. I noticed a lot of similarities though between twin moms and singleton moms, which is interesting, as well as a few differences. Obviously you have 2 babies, right? But let's talk about that. And as you're listening to this, if you find that you want some personalized help in pumping fast and efficiently, which is going to be really important for you if you have twins, and kind of making this work, especially as a working mom, there's an application down below. We'd love to talk with you about our long-term coaching program. Okay, let's start with some of the differences, and then we'll look at some of the similarities that are just common across all moms. All right. So some of the major differences are oftentimes there are earlier births with twins, meaning that we sometimes tend to get into pumping earlier as well. And this is just kind of a normal part of twins. They're born a little early sometimes, in fact, often. And so it's not uncommon for them to go to the NICU for a little bit or just to stay in the hospital a little bit longer, or sometimes they are really small and pumping just becomes part of the experience really quickly. And there's a difference between pumping in the early days and early weeks versus pumping long term. So even that's a little different. Mostly when we talk to moms about joining our program, they're on maternity leave, so they've already had their babies, with the exception of twin moms or moms that have done this before, second, third, fourth time moms, because you know you're going to be pumping, right? You know it's a lot. You know it's going to be, you need double the milk. And so earlier pumping, sometimes because of earlier births or small babies, is a difference that we see in twin moms. Number 2, actually, I didn't realize it was on number 2. It's kind of funny, but it's double everything. 2s all the way around. Okay. You need double the milk supply. All right. And your body is equipped to do that. The hormones that come with a twin pregnancy often make it possible for double the milk supply, but there is just such a small margin for error. And we're going to talk about that in a second, but you need double the milk. Okay. You also have double the feeding, right? So even if you're feeding at the breast, you are tandem, nursing, or if you do it one at a time, it's just double the time. Okay. Pumping doesn't necessarily need to take twice as long. Like you can pump out milk for 2 babies in the same time you could pump out milk for 1 baby, right? But you're going to have twice the bottle feeding. And so, however you look at it, there's double the feeding. There's also the double the feeding supplies. So particularly with pumping moms, which is who I specialize in working with, you're just going to have a lot of pump parts, a lot of bottles, right? Again, pump parts should be very similar, but just bottles and stuff everywhere. Double the fun. Number 3, some of the differences we see in twin moms are more supply concerns. And obviously this is a big factor for singleton moms as well, but you need more supply than with a singleton mom. So actually a couple of our twin moms, this has happened where they've actually had single babies in the past and things have been fine. Breastfeeding was fine, pumping was fine, they got enough output. And then when they had twins, all of a sudden they noticed that they're not able to meet that double need. And to be honest, a lot of times it's because they weren't pumping totally correctly before, but they might have had a tendency toward an oversupply, so they could kind of get away with some incorrect practices, and it still just kind of worked. But when you have twins, you have to be way more intentional on making sure that things are correct because it's a lot of milk, right? You need like 55, 60 ounces a day, right? And that's a lot of milk. You can do it, but it has to be correct, or it's not likely to stay up that high for long term, right? Establishing a strong milk supply in the beginning is vital. Again, this is common for everybody, but for twins, it's even more important. And especially twin births just are a little bit more complicated for the most part. So things are more complicated in the beginning, but establishing that milk supply right away is really, really important. Number 4 difference is you're juggling 2 schedules. Okay, with a singleton, you can kind of adapt to your baby's natural feeding rhythm. You can just kind of go with the flow. But with twins, syncing up their schedules and feedings can make pumping in like twin life more manageable, although sometimes that's easier said than done. So you are juggling 2 different schedules here with twins. Number 5 is you're juggling 2 different babies. And I think it's a common mindset to get into with twins that you just have like a clone, bam, bam, 2. So it's just double. But these are 2 different babies, and you'll probably have one that's a better eater or a better nurser, or that sleeps better at night, or that is fussy and doesn't like you and only likes this one, and like, you're dealing with 2 different babies. So that's tricky, right? 2 different humans means 2 different growth patterns, feeding preferences, oral anatomy, sleep schedules, personalities. You have 2 different humans you're dealing with. So it can be a little bit more brain power in trying to figure out everything, especially when we're talking about feeding. And then number 6, you have to be more intentional. And there is just a much smaller margin for error. And what I mean by that is, like I said before, you can sometimes get away with just kind of ish things and it works okay, especially if you have plenty of milk. But with twins, you don't, right? You have a large quantity that you need. And so things have to be really precise and correct to be able to maintain that long term. A lot of times in the beginning, your body just sends tons of milk and it comes easily. And there's actually a video we did recently on milk supply regulation, which would be really interesting for you to watch. I'll put that down below for you too. But milk just comes easily in the beginning. And especially with twins, you probably have a lot. But to keep it that high, things need to be happening correctly and efficiently, because you don't have any time to waste, especially if you're a working mom, which is who I specialize in. So working with, if you have 2 babies, we have to be really efficient because your time is already limited and your brain space because you're dealing with 2 humans. And then if you go back to work too, it's just a lot, right? And so you have to be more intentional with your milk supply, with your brain power, with your life. Before we jump into the similarities real quick, I do just want to remind you that we can help you with this. We have a coaching program called Pumping for Working Moms. So if that fits you, especially if you have twins, there's an application down below because we want to see you make this so much easier on yourself, right? With a singleton, you need like 30 ounces, 25, 30 ounces. And with twins, you could need up to 70. And I know that math doesn't math, but it never does with twins. So anyway, there is a link down below if you want some help with this. Okay, let's talk about the similarities between twin moms and singletons, because I have noticed that a lot of times pumping is pumping. And if we can do things correctly, then it just works for anyone, no matter how many babies you have, no matter the quantity you need. So here's some similarities between twin moms and singleton moms. Pumping efficiently is key. All right. And it's very similar. We're not doing anything different for twin moms versus single moms. You just need more volume. So it becomes, I think, a little bit more important. But I have found that the concepts to pumping efficiently are very similar no matter how many babies you have. So getting a good pumping schedule that works really well for you, getting an appropriate flange size, really maximizing your letdowns with a breast pump, which is different than a baby. We did a video recently on removing milk with a baby versus a breast pump and the differences there. I'll put that one down below too. It might be interesting for you to watch. So maximizing letdowns, getting your pump settings right, figuring out which techniques work best for you, and then juggling all the mental and emotional aspects that come with pumping. It's a lot, and it tends to be very similar for any type of mom. Pumping efficiently is key. Right. But it looks very similar. 2 things that I actually, as I'm saying that, might be a little bit different for twin moms are your ability to adjust down your pumping schedule. So with those high milk needs, unless you have a really large storage capacity, you probably are going to need to be pumping, quite a bit. Sometimes we can adjust that down with singleton moms where we can get them, if it's really efficient, we can cut that back a little bit. Sometimes we can't with pumping with twin moms. And occasionally you may be a little bit more prone to clogs and mastitis just because you have a large milk quantity. And I actually haven't read any studies on this or anything. This is just anecdotal from my experience working with twin moms. But you may be a little more susceptible there just because you have so much milk. So if for some reason we can't get it all out or it backs up a little bit, that's when a clog happens, right? And so again, just high quantities of milk make that a little tricky, but everything else is very, very similar. Number 2 similarity is you need a high quality pump, okay? But so does everybody. And I wouldn't say that there are pumps that are maybe better for twins or not, but it is probably just as important that you get something really high quality. If you are planning on relying on a wearable pump or even a small, cheap portable pump, for twins, it's probably not a good idea, right? Wearable pumps in general, we tend to make sure we troubleshoot really well because they can be a little bit finicky for everybody. But if you are trusting your 60-ounce milk supply on a wearable pump, or if you have to, because that's the kind of job you're going back to, we really got to make sure that things are dialed in, because that scares me a little bit if you're trying to do this on your own. And it makes me nervous. Okay, number 3 similarity is good bottle feeding skills, right? Anyone that's pumping needs good bottle feeding skills. And I know you're probably thinking, well, I can feed a baby a bottle. You just put it in and you feed them. But there's a lot of nuance and technique that goes into it, especially if you're balancing the breast and the bottle, kind of going back and forth between those. There's a lot of technique that can go into that as well. And it's also important to make sure that we're not overfeeding babies, which is a common problem that I'm seeing with moms that I'm working with, is their supplies are actually good, but the baby's being overfed with breast milk in a bottle. And so now they need more milk. And if you're a twin mom, we're going to need double the more milk, right? So, and it can be a lot. If you're already pumping 60 ounces a day and you need to get up to 70 because your baby's being overfed a little bit on the bottle, that's hard. It's like I know big, it's all relative, I guess, but it's hard to force your body to do more than it needs to. So having good bottle feeding skills and knowing appropriate amounts, being able to watch the baby, really important for everybody across the board. And the number 4 similarity is building a freezer stash, right? Working moms, you need a small something in the freezer when you go back to work. Everyone's a little bit different on what they like, how much feels good to them. And we really focus on finding that balance between building your freezer stash while you're on maternity leave and then keeping it up while you're back to work, and balancing your mental and emotional sanity. There's a fine line there, but that's important too. So again, as a twin mom, you may need more milk than others, but everyone's trying to build a freezer stash. And I found it to be a really similar process, both with singleton moms and twin moms. You do need more milk though, which is another reason why I always like working with twin moms sooner rather than later, because we just don't have the margin for error that we do sometimes with just a one baby. Okay, and then for working twin moms, how is this different if you are a working twin mom on top of this? Okay, not only do you have to do everything we talked about before, now you have to go back to work too. So here's a few thoughts for working twin moms, okay? Number 1, I've already beaten this point into the ground, but you have less room for error, okay? You have to start things really well from the beginning, or you're going to be playing catch up forever, and I don't want that for you. You have to stick to your pumping schedule, especially in the workplace. Obviously true for singleton moms too, but really important for you because you have so much milk. Not only will it affect your milk supply, right? But it could also cause problems like clots and mastitis, which we do not want because you have such a large quantity of milk. If you cannot get it out effectively with a breast pump and get it all out with a breast pump, it's going to cause you problems, not only in your milk supply, but potentially health-wise as well. So got to stick to your pumping schedule. And being cautious with wearable pumps too. Along the same note, sometimes we can get away with a little bit less efficiency for singleton moms, but we have to be really careful with twin moms, not only for your milk supply, but also for those health risks too. Okay, number 2, formula supplementation tends to be a little bit more common with twins, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be. Alicia, whose story I mentioned in the beginning, I don't think she did any formula supplementation or very minimal. And so it is definitely possible that you get there, especially if that's important to you. But also sometimes, 2 ounces of formula a day can just help you be able to maintain what you're doing without driving yourself completely crazy, shooting for these really large quantities of milk. So again, it doesn't really matter to me how you feed your baby. What matters to me is that you feel comfortable with how you feed your baby and that you get to make choices and decisions that feel good and not that feel like you're being forced into them because you have to be, right? I'll be doing an interview and share a story with another twin mom here upcoming soon. Her name's Megan, and she's wonderful. She had a goal of a year of pumping for twins. She did an awesome job. Around the 8-month mark, she decided that she needed to make a change based on what was going on in her life, based on what she was feeling, thinking a lot of reasons. I'll let her explain in her story there. And she made a conscious decision to wean from the pump, and she was like the perfect example of how to make an informed choice and feel really, really good about it, even though it was different than your original goal. She handled that with so much grace, with so much control. She was in control of her journey. And I feel pretty confident that she will look back on this experience with positive things, not negative feelings that she didn't meet this first goal she had before she even had babies, where you don't know what you're doing. It was amazing. to hear her mindset. And that's what I want for you is I want control. Okay. I don't care how you feed your baby. I don't care how long you do it. I want you to feel good about the way you choose to mother your child. And if that means that you want to provide breast milk and you have to go back to work as well, I want that for you. And I want you to do it as long as you want to and help you and guide you through that whole process. Sorry, kind of got on a little soapbox there, but I feel really passionately about it. And honestly, this is why I created this coaching program. I went through it myself and it was terrible doing it by myself. It didn't work. I watched my supply slowly go down, and this was just for a singleton, right? When you have twins, it's that much more complicated. I've developed a step-by-step guide for you and a team of experts waiting to help you through that. So anyway, that was a huge soapbox. Sorry about that. Number 3 thing that I see sometimes with pumping working twin moms is that they often choose to exclusively pump. And again, you don't have to. You certainly can feed at the breast. Again, it doesn't matter to me, but I do see this pretty often. And I think it's because you're pumping so much anyway. And a lot of you start early too because of the whole twin situation at the beginning, which I get. And sometimes it can just be easier, right? Because other people can help with the feeding responsibilities. You just kind of can set your schedule. You don't have to coordinate as much with multiple babies, especially at the breast. You're going to be pumping anyway if you go back to work. So I do end up seeing a lot of twin moms who just kind of move to exclusively pumping, which is fine too. But I've had several that have mixed it up with nursing as well. So I don't know. I do see that often. So I kind of wanted to mention that, but it can be easier to kind of split the duties in half a little bit. And it can feel really good to kind of know the input that you're giving each baby, especially if there's, weight concerns and things like that. So twins, they're so fun. I love working with twin moms because they're usually highly motivated and they got to make this work and we got to get it right and we got to make it efficient because you have so many things on your plate. You can totally do this. Okay. I have worked with a lot of twin moms and I've had many surpass their goals. Alicia, who I hope you listened to her story, her goal was 12 months. She got to 12 months. And she's like, this is actually pretty, I feel fine. I'm going to keep doing this. It went to 14, I think even up to 50. I can't remember. It was crazy because it was just working so well. I've also had some that have had to adjust and make some changes. And as long as you have someone to guide you through that, I think it can make the biggest difference. Also had clients squeak by every milestone at just the perfect amount and, working toward that sustainable solution. So the goal in life is never 100% of something, right? The goal should be to do your best and to be able to look back on this experience with positive feelings, to be in control of the decisions that you make and decide when you're done on your own terms, to be able to mother the way that you want to mother, even if you need to return to work. You shouldn't have to sacrifice your feeding goals because you're a working mom, right? And especially because you have twins does not mean that you can't do this. You can do this. Okay. And the easiest way is probably to get some help along the way because you got a lot of things going on in your life. Good luck. Good luck. You get 2 because everything is double here. You need it. So happy pumping. Reach out if I can help at all and good luck to you. Good luck.